Hello everybody and welcome back. So I've been playing MMOs for a long time, and as soon as my home was destroyed by an Ibisi and my guild just kind of drifted apart, I've been looking for another place to spend my time. I mean, I've been here and I've been there, but nothing's ever really held my attention. But there's one game currently in development that I am super excited for and watching really closely, and that game is Ashes of Creation. Ashes is an MMO being developed by Intrepid Studios and has been in development since early 2016. I myself have been following them since early last year, just before the Kickstarter launched, and I must say, they have yet to disappoint. Ashes is a player-driven MMO, meaning it's not going to have that long, overarching story, at least not like other games that are on the market. There will be quests and dungeons and other things we're familiar with. However, the story, at least as we know it so far, is that our characters are entering a world their ancestors had to flee for purposes that are still a mystery, leaving only scattered ruins and remnants of their civilization behind. But the gates they used to flee reopened, and it's time for us to go through them and reclaim these now wild lands. What this means is there's no NPCs, there's no cities, governments, kingdoms, or even settlements, and as these things do not exist, it's up to the players to create them. Much of this is going to be done through the use of a node system, which is a very interesting concept that is going to change the world not only physically as towns grow and shrink, but also the content and how it becomes available. And the way that's going to work is the map will be split into different areas known as zones of influence, and the activities of the players in these zones is going to contribute to that zone's development. Think of it as if the land itself has its own leveling system, and each action the players make that gains them experience also gains the land experience. The node itself is located within a zone of influence, and as soon as enough experience is earned, that it's the area of the camp will be formed by NPCs who I assume travel through the gates alongside you, because if they're just still there, that kind of screws up the story. The node will then begin to level up, and with enough work, it can be developed all the way from a camp to a metropolis. However, there can only be a certain number of developed nodes on a server, and as some rise, some are going to have to fall. So camps and towns are going to disappear or be taken over by larger and more powerful neighboring nodes. Players are also going to be able to wage war on each other, bringing down another node's value, therefore allowing their own to grow. This also means nodes are going to be in a constant state of flux and require constant work to maintain. The growth of a node is also going to change the game in other ways. Some are just going to be mundane, like bridges are going to form and roads are going to form, but the activity of a node is also going to catch the attention of creatures out in the wild, drawing them out of the forest and changing the mobs that are in the area. It may also wake large and horrible monsters who are not too keen about being disturbed. Passages to dungeons may be discovered and new gathering points found. This means that each server is going to have a unique experience because it's all going to depend on what nodes on those servers were developed. There is a lot to this node system, so I may do another video on it as soon as we get more information. They are also being very ambitious when it comes to their classes, which they are calling Ark Types. So the Ark Types are going to consist of Fighter, Tank, Ranger, Rogue, Cleric, Bard, Summoner, and Mage. But the unique part of this is you're going to be able to cross-class, and when you do cross-class, your archetype is going to change completely. So a fighter who cross-classes with a ranger, for instance, is not going to just be a fighter with a bow and some ranger abilities. It's actually going to change your archetype to a hunter. And if you're a rogue who crosses with a cleric, you're going to become a cultist. And if you just don't want to shake that boat too much and you want to cross your mage with a mage because, I don't know, you just like mage that much, well, then you're going to become an arc wizard. One thing I really like about their archetypes is they didn't restrict them by weapon. So if you want to be an arc wizard engaging your enemy with a spell and sword, you can do it. If you want to be a fighter who beats someone with a book, I guess you can do that too. I mean, it's probably not going to be as effective, but whatever. I mean, you just do you. Combat will be a combination of both tab targeting and action combat, and the footage we've seen, some of which I'm playing for you right here, looks absolutely amazing. Now this footage is pre-alpha footage, so it's not complete and it's not finalized, and there are some placeholders and all that stuff, and it's also purely action combat. This does not have the tab target element into it, but seriously, for alpha footage, oh, mwah. There will of course be PvP, and they developed a corruption system for those who try to abuse it by doing stuff like corpse camping and just attacking people who don't want to PvP. The corruption system, as far as we know so far, seems like it's going to be pretty fun too, since if you kill someone that didn't want a PvP, you yourself may become a target, and not only will your stats take a drastic hit, you will be made visible on the map, and your corpse, once someone avenges the death of whoever you killed, is going to be lootable. And yes, I will be taking that expensive sword, and please give me those enchanted rings. Thank you. One thing that I find is super exciting for some reason is Ashes is going to have a completely fleshed out season system. So the seasons are going to change from week to week. So from spring to summer, autumn to fall. And it's going to change the way we interact with the environment. Rivers are going to freeze over, allowing you access to areas that weren't accessible before. New creatures are going to appear. New gathering nodes are going to be found. I mean, most games have seasons, but I cannot think of any that have such a drastic effect on the world. I am, like I said, super excited to see how this affects the game and gameplay. They will release under a subscription model, but that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of us who play MMOs are under the impression that free-to-play should be the one and only way these types of games work. But honestly, I don't think free-to-play model works at all. I mean, nothing's really ever truly free-to-play. You always have cash shops, and there are always items on those cash shops that can make or break your game. Even if they're not necessarily pay-to-win items, the convenience they provide far outweighs like just not purchasing them. So you're going to spend money regardless. I really think the free-to-play model is just in our heads because there are so many of them out there. But really, if you sit back and take a look at them, I mean, they're not that great. We've been inundated lately with free-to-play Eastern MMOs, and while they seem at first glance like game changers or maybe the next best thing, they all just tend to go down that same path of either becoming pay-to-win or just cash grabs. Honestly, if this was not a Western MMO, or if it was free to play, I would not be nearly as hyped about it as I am, because we as a community have just been burned so many times. I prefer the subscription model due to the fact that the studio then has a steady stream of income and can provide a steady stream of support and hopefully content. And the studio in this game is just another factor on what appeals to me and makes it easy for me to give them a monthly sub. If you watch the streams and you read interviews, you see various developers and people behind the scenes coming and going as they give information. But the two main faces you see is Steven Sharif and Geoffrey Bard. Steven is the creative director and, really importantly, an actual gamer. One of the biggest problems I see in games today is the people in charge, and frankly a lot of people creating games, are just not gamers themselves and therefore don't understand all those fine little details about what it's like for someone who invests time into a game because they really love gaming. Having an actual gamer at the helm gives me more hope for this game than someone just trying to climb some corporate ladder or get themselves ever bigger bonuses. He's even donated millions of his own dollars to this project already, which further gives him even more credit in my opinion. Geoffrey Bard is a lead game designer, and he just seems like a fun guy. I mean, you could tell when you watch him that he loves games, and he really seems to love this one. He has an excitement that's almost contagious. I really like listening to him talk about the game just because of just that enthusiasm he has. The excitement of the dev team is one thing, but it's certainly not the only reason I'm willing to pay subscription. I mean, they've spoken before about the importance of transparency, and so far, they've really been nothing but I would much rather a company be frank with me, especially about development. I've done lots of beta tests, and I've also obviously been gaming for quite a long time, and I find nothing more annoying than when a company says, hey, look what we're going to do, and then they never do it, they never implement it, and they never mention it again, no matter how often they're asked. Transparency builds trust. Even if you cannot deliver, if a company just says, hey, we tried, but it wasn't possible for yada yada reasons, so we have turned our attention to this sort of content instead. Hey, great, thanks for letting me know. Boom, you got my trust, or at least more than I would normally give. The pace of development is also something to be admired. In just a couple short years, they've laid what seems to be an excellent foundation and have been very open about the various stages it's gone through. They've given us so much footage, and even though much of it's been filled with placeholders, you can see a definite progression, and honestly, it makes it more fun to follow. You get to literally watch it grow and change, and as a gamer, but not a game developer, it's super interesting. The Alpha 1 test is about to begin, and that's exciting in and of itself just because it makes that actual release feel more and more tangible. I was not able to contribute to the Kickstarter when it was happening, but I have bought a package and have Alpha 2 access. So I will be following this game closely as always, and I'll make videos whenever I'm able, and I'll even stream footage as soon as that becomes available. But that is all I have for you today. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you are as excited about this game as I am. It seems like it's going to be amazing. But as usual, it's been a hoot, and until next time, have fun.